Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /EntitledPeople, where you know the deal. People truly think they're the center of the universe and no one else matters. And since the holidays are coming up and a lot of airports are going to be crammed full of people, we've got an episode full of airport Karens. You won't want to miss this one today. I hope you enjoy the stories, don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So since Christmas is right around the corner, I have a story to share that happened last year around the same time. Here's some background. I work as a fueler at a major airport. We are contracted out, so while I don't necessarily work for one airline, let's just say I almost exclusively fuel 737s. I sometimes go up to the terminal to print out schedules since airlines are constantly switching gates and delaying flights, so I need to be on top of that. Sometimes I have customers come up and they ask questions, even though I'm dressed nothing like any of the customer service agents, but I'm generally willing to answer them or direct them to someone who can help. This one day, I see a lady in her late 40s with a large floppy purse and a plastic bag from one of those overpriced boutiques at the airport, absolutely filled with crap. She's calm and she's honestly quite beautiful for a woman nearly twice my age. The woman pulls out one of her earbuds and she walks up to me and she says, "Hey, do you know what gate the flight to XX is going out of?" I tell her, yes, it got moved to gate number 7. It's landing in about 10 minutes, so you might want to head over there. Hearing that, she says, "What? How the hell am I supposed to keep up with that?" I respond, "Tell me about it," but they usually announce it over the intercom. The woman huffs and she says, "Well, you need to help me move my bags over there." It's at this point I look over and apparently she has another carry-on next to a kid who's maybe 8 years old, who also has a Transformers carry-on. As much as I'd like to help, I can't touch a passenger's bag, and I have to get back down to the ramp. So I tell the woman, "I'm sorry, but I don't work for this airline. If you go to customer service over there, I'm sure they can help you out." Hearing me say that, the woman says, "I don't want to stand in that line. That line is long. I'm ordering you to do it." At this point, I had had enough. I'd helped this lady the best I could, and now I had other stuff to do. So I head for the stairway to the ramp. I scan my badge, and I was about to shut the door when this lady runs up behind me, leaving her kid and the bags behind. And she holds the door open, yelling, "Stay right where you are. Don't you dare walk away from me when I'm talking to you. You are not done helping me." I just complied, and I waited 15 seconds for the alarm to go off. At that point, 2 TSA agents run up to see what's going on. TSA agent number 1 says, "Why did the alarm go off?" To which I respond, "This lady tried to follow me down the ramp." TSA agent 2, writing my badge number down, says, "We'll take it from here." He then looks at the woman, who's now in shock, and he says, "Come with us." Hopefully, she was able to make her flight, but knowing how seriously they take an accidental alarm, I doubt it. I do feel bad for the lady, as traveling around the holidays does add stress that can make people do weird stuff. I also don't mess with the TSA because they do a very good job of wasting your time. Listen, I wouldn't feel too bad if I was in that situation because that Karen seriously needs to get knocked down a few pegs, right? Like, I'll just never understand how people can talk to complete strangers like that. And if she missed that flight, that's karma for her behavior because, again, who honestly orders people around like that? And this person comments, "As a flight attendant, let me tell you, it felt good to read that. You're so right when you say that traveling stress makes people do weird stuff. Sometimes, it seems they leave their brains at the airplane door." And speaking of brains being left at the door, this next Karen, oh boy, the audacity is all I can say. For a bit of context, I work as a musical conductor as a side hustle. I was in the airport, getting ready to fly home to see family for the new year. I'm also getting ready to do a production of something I'm working on now, so I had both headphones and earbuds in. My headphones were playing recordings of the songs, and the earbuds were playing a recording of me talking through the instrumentation so I could just practice while sitting or standing in line. It's a super common practice among conductors. So that said, I was practicing while sitting in the terminal waiting for boarding to start. Enter the entitled Karen. The woman comes over and says, "Oh, are you a musician?" I let her know, yes, I'm a conductor with the local theater group and we're doing a... She then cuts me off and she says, "That's great, my son is a musician too." She then gestures towards a 9-year-old kid sitting a few seats away from me. She then goes on and says, "He listens to a lot of classical music, you know." Now, I have a degree in musicology, and I know that listening to classical music can be a full chore, as analysis of a single piece can take hours if you go in depth enough. But this kid didn't seem like the analysis type. That being said, I always want to encourage young musicians, so I went with it. I say, "Oh, that's nice to hear." The woman responds, "Yeah, it is. So, do you think he could have your headphones so he could listen to his music on the flight?" The woman said that already reaching for my headphones. I let her know, well, I'm actually practicing right now, but once I finish a few more songs, he can borrow my earbuds for a bit. Hearing that, the woman frowns and glares at me. She then says, you have 2 pairs of headphones. Just give him one and you can listen to the other." That's when I start to explain that I need both, as I recorded my own voice for directions. But she cuts me off again and she says, "You're an adult. You should be ashamed that you're making up excuses like this." Now, hearing that come out of her mouth, I decided that I didn't really want to deal with this, so I calmly said, "Ma'am, please sit down or I will ask airport security to mediate this discussion." I then put my music back on as the woman sat back down staring at me. When I finished my set, I figured the mom had probably calmed down by this point and that I could let the kid borrow my earbuds for a bit. So I walk over with my earbuds and I offered to let the kid borrow them. The kid seemed happy, and he was reaching for them when the mom stopped him and said, No, he wants the headphones." I respond, "I'm sorry, but I use these for work. I really can't lend them out as they're kind of pricey." The woman says, "Lend?" Now, I was a little taken aback, and I say, "I'm sorry, did you think I was gonna give your child my headphones?" She then says, "You have 2 pairs. You obviously don't need them. Just let me buy one." The woman then pulls her wallet out like she was gonna buy them off me, and she says, "How much are they?" "I'll give you $30. At that I respond, "They're $350. The woman goes red in the face. I also want to mention that there's several people looking at us at this point, and I'm a 6'3" bearded man, so in these kinds of situations, I'm usually made out to be the bad guy. I just went to my seat without another word, and I turn up my music. About 10 minutes later, this airport security guy taps me on my shoulder. The guy says, "Sir, where did you get those headphones?" I look behind him to see Karen with a giant grin on her face. I tell him I brought them from home. I used them for work. The guy then says, "Well, we have reports of you taking them from that woman over there. Do you have any proof that they belong to you?" Luckily, my lock screen is me sitting at a soundboard wearing those headphones, and they have a sticker on the side that matches my business card. The guy apologized and then left. I then hear the woman yelling at him for a while longer, but she didn't bother me in the terminal after that. During the flight, I see her walking down the aisle holding a cup from the drink cart, and she's clearly looking through the seats for something. When the woman saw me, she starts very deliberately walking in my direction, and I realized that she was gonna do the trip or something and drop the drink on me. I just moved my stuff into my bag and I waited. I was in a window seat, so she really couldn't throw the drink on me, but I did give her a smirk, which I knew drove her crazy. I'd love to say that Karen raged after that and she got thrown off the plane or something, but the other 2 people in the seats just sort of laughed at her when I told them what happened. I do still have the headphones, so I consider that a victory though. Seriously, how many of you shook your heads at the audacity of that woman? Like, I can never understand the mentality of some people. You have 2 headphones, so let me buy one, or give me one. Like, how about no, Karen? And the nerve of her to go to security about it, and then on the plane try to get back at OP by spilling water on them. Like, why, Karen? And with being in the airport, like, I bet there was one of those little airport convenience stores that she could have gone to and spent $30 on earbuds for her kid. But no, let's just take a complete strangers. Again, the last comment where OP said, some people leave their brains at the door. Case in point. So here's a bit of context before I get to the bones of the story. I'm a 21-year-old female, and I've never flown by myself before. I was super nervous about it, but my parents had moved out of state not too long ago, so I have to visit for the holidays. Yay! Being nervous, I tried to avoid every possible roadblock before I even got to the airport. Last Monday, my flight that I originally was scheduled for was cancelled due to bad weather. Luckily, I was rescheduled, so my flight went from 11:30 p.m. on a Monday to 8:30 a.m. on Tuesday. I wasn't super stoked to be up that early, but I was still glad that I was going to see my family. That said, I got through TSA okay, and I made it across the airport to my gate. The people at the gate did look a bit grumpy, but I just chalked it up to the flight being cancelled the night before. Another thing, I paid to choose my own seat and for priority boarding so I could get on the plane and be done with it. The gate agent announced at 7:45 that the boarding process would begin. Those who need assistance first, then military, and then priority boarding. A woman with her mother in a wheelchair boarded, and then a nice old man in a walker and his wife. And finally, the entitled Karen and her kids. The mom had 4 teenage daughters with her, and one of them was in a wheelchair. All 5 of them walk up to the gate agent to board, and the following conversation ensued. The Karen says, "We're ready to pre-board. My daughter's in a wheelchair." The gate agent says, "All right, ma'am, can I see your boarding passes?" The Karen and her kids all show their phones to the gate agent, and he scans them. The agent says, "Okay, ma'am, it looks like the girl is the only one approved for pre-boarding, but I can let one of you board with her if she needs assistance." The girl then says, "I'm fine, I can board on my own, I don't need help." The mom says, "Don't be silly, you need us to help you." She then looks at the gate agent and she says she can't get seated by herself. She's disabled, right, girls? The woman and her 3 other daughters agree amongst themselves, while the girl in the wheelchair tries to sink into her chair. The Karen then says, "Who will help her if we aren't on the plane? She can't get on herself. You have to let all of us board with her." The girl then says to her mom, "I can get in myself, Mom. I don't need help." That's when the gate attendant says, "Well, ma'am, I did say if she needs assistance, one of you may go with her. But she says she can board herself, then she can board herself. I'm sure a flight attendant can help her get seated if she needs it." That's when Karen loses it and she screams and says, "She needs us to help her. She can't do it herself. Why can't you effing get that?" The gate agent says, "Ma'am, she's insistent that she can seat herself, so I'll have a flight attendant come assist her on the ramp, and you can wait until your group is called. Even if she did want your assistance, I'm sure all 4 of you don't have to help her." The gate agent then calls a flight attendant who helped the girl board. He then calls for priority boarding, and being seated the closest, as I wanted to get on the plane as I'm nervous, I stand up, grab my bags, and show the gate agent my boarding pass. And that's when Karen screams and says, "Why does she get to board? She isn't disabled, she's just fat." This is BS. I didn't know fat people are that special. I just felt my face getting hot and I start to get nervous. The gate agent says she paid for priority boarding, therefore she gets to board before everyone else. Karen says that makes no sense. I don't get to pre-board with my disabled daughter, but she gets to board before everyone else. At this point, the gate agent says, "Ma'am, we have a belligerent passenger policy. If I deem you a threat, you don't have to fly. Sit down." And that shut her up. I just boarded as fast as I could, and walking on the plane, I see the girl sitting in the front row, quietly reading a book and listening to music. If that's how the lady acted, then I don't know how she acts the rest of the time. I got to my seat in the middle of the plane, and towards the end of boarding, I saw why Karen and her daughters wanted to board with the girl. They were part of the last boarding group, all the way at the back of the plane. The flight went well, and I'm having a good time with my family. And I do hope the entitled mom and her family have a good trip too, even if she was an entitled jerk. Hey, kudos to OP for wanting good things, even for nasty people like Karen. But what a situation to be caught in, right? Like, it just sucks that OP caught that stray and was insulted for no reason at all. Like, shame on you, Karen, for even saying something like that. With that aside, I do feel so bad for the daughter in the wheelchair. Like, you can only imagine how much mom uses her disability to get what she wants. And if you thought that was ridiculous, this person shares a similar story. This happened a while back, so I thought it'd be fitting to share. My family and I were headed to India for a month for a wedding, and my parents speak no English whatsoever, only the basics like hello and please. That's about it. Anyways, we get our bags checked in, and we're in line next for security. There weren't many people in the line, so it went pretty fast. We were up next. We go and put our stuff in the bins, and we go through the metal detectors. My parents go through first, and I follow. When I went through, however, the metal detector beeped, and this made this one woman behind me go ballistic. The woman starts shouting, saying, "That man made the metal detector beep." The person working there goes, "Yes, ma'am, we're trying to identify the situation here, so please hold on." The Karen says, "Well, that situation is that terrorist probably has an explosive on him." Hearing her say that, it made me shocked and honestly quite embarrassed. I started to sweat. I was wearing jeans and a blue hoodie with a button-up shirt underneath, so it did maybe look a bit skeptical. But I'm pretty sure that I didn't have a bomb on me. When they were done with the search, they gave me a clear, and the reason it beeped was because the metal on my hoodie strings were made of steel, which triggered the alarm. The Karen then gets outraged again, and she starts screaming at the TSA. She says, "How didn't you find it? Did you check his jacket? You can clearly see it in his jacket." The agent says, "Ma'am, he got patted down, so everything's fine. There's nothing to worry about." The Karen then says, "Can you not do this again? I don't feel safe. I'm being threatened. He definitely has a bomb." Now, I was way beyond offended, and I could see the rage fuming in this woman's eyes. But before I knew it, she starts going after me. The woman ran through the detectors, and she was obviously stopped by the people working there. They just told me to grab my things and go at this point, and they escorted her somewhere. My parents came to see what happened as they were very concerned. After I explained everything to my parents and they understood what happened, we just got some lunch at a restaurant and then boarded our plane. My freaking goodness, like, some people are quite the character, aren't they? And that's putting it nicely in regards to Karen. Like, holy moly, those are some wild accusations, Karen, especially at an airport. And I think we can all agree that hopefully she did face some consequences for that wild outburst. Okay, so strap in because this is a hell of a ride. I work for a very popular airline in Germany. I also don't work at the airport, but sometimes I have to check the planes and make sure the cabin crew is rested and they have all their legs fulfilled. I also have to write reports. Now, my uniform is dark red. I wear dark red slacks, black heel pumps, and a white button-down, and a real dark red blazer. There's no way in hell that you could mistake me for something else other than an airline employee. Cue the holidays. I spent most of the time at our base writing flight reports, and I hate writing flight reports, and I thought a coffee would help me get through this task easier. So I get up, left the office, and I went to the bakery in the security area of the terminal. Now, this bakery makes the best latte around. Also, this bakery sports a nice white uniform, which consists of a white polo shirt with the logo of the bakery on it. I was just about to order my extra big latte when this woman steps in front of me. She basically starts yelling, "Hi, can I get?" and then she rattles down her order. The bakery employee just looked at her and mentioned that I was first, and I was in the middle of ordering something, and that he would deal with me first before he could accept her order. Now, this lady was an older, small lady with very white and long hair. She looked like a grandma, but she destroyed this image by basically screaming at me and the employee. The woman screams and says, "She works at the airport here. She can get her stuff later. I have a flight to catch." I told the bakery dude that it's fine, that I can wait, and I asked the lady what kind of flight she was taking. Unfortunately, she took this as an insult. She screams and says, "You don't need to know what flight I'm taking. It's not your business. You airport staff should better clean the display. Look how dirty it is." She then smeared her hands on the glass. She just continued screaming, and I stopped talking to her since it didn't make any sense to waste more time with her. For some reason, she didn't like my silence. The woman kept talking and berating me, telling me how bad I am at my job. I was thinking about following her to the gate to find out where she's flying to, because this lady wasn't stable enough to fly. When suddenly, she hits me with her luggage. And to clarify, I wasn't prepared to get hit at all. Also, her luggage was heavy. It was one of those suitcases that were made out of metal. Security gets called by the bakery employee, and they gave me a latte for free. We then find out that this lady was actually a standby passenger on an overbooked flight, so she was definitely gonna miss it. It wasn't a flight with the airline I work for, but the cabin crew heard of her behavior and they banned her from the flight anyways. After this whole ordeal, I got back to the office to complete my flight records, and I sighed because now I needed to write up an incident report for this crazy lady who just assaulted me. I just drank my coffee and got it over with. Well, that's one way to not get on a flight, right? Attack someone in the airport. And for those who are curious how the Karen reacted when getting detained by security, Opie comes and says she didn't say a word and she complied with security staff. The woman also wasn't flying alone, and I guess the stares that she got from the person flying with her were enough for her to realize that she effed up royally. I do hope that Karen learned a lesson, guys. And listen, I know it's common sense, but airports are not the place to act like how any of these Karens acted. Because the worst thing that can happen is to not be allowed on a flight home to see family or friends. And what's almost as bad as people verbally abusing others is when people think that their time is more valuable, guys, and they cut in front of long lines, like this Karen in this next short post. When this happened, I'm flying out of Seattle during the week of Christmas, and there was a long line at the security check-in area. In fact, the line is so long that it's overflowing out of the designated area. The airport's provided a person with an end-of-the-line sign to keep things from getting out of hand. I get in line and 20 minutes go by. There's about 30 people behind me, and suddenly, out of nowhere, there was a new person in front of me. Now, I'm not sure about you, but people who cut in line are second to serial killers for me. But maybe he's mistaken, so I tap him on the shoulder and tell him, "Hey, the end of the line sign is way back there." But this mofo turns around and he says to me, No, the new line starts right here." Hearing that, I'm thinking, what the F? Like the gall, the brazen shamelessness made my teeth gnash. And I can tell that other people in line agree with me. But this is Seattle, so everyone just silently cedes. Meanwhile, a TSA agent that's standing nearby witnessed this entire scene. He comes over to me and he asked, "Hey, did that man cut?" I answered in the affirmative. To this, he replies, "People like that never actually get ahead." And I want to note, he said that while giving me a wink. Little did I know that his prediction would manifest itself soon thereafter. As we head to the conveyor belt where the bags are x-rayed, this troglodyte is still in front of me. The guy puts his bags on the belt, but they don't appear on the other end. Finally, it dawns on him that all of his bags have been commandeered for hand check. When the other passengers realized what happened, there was an audible celebration, and a few people did laugh out loud. Somewhere out there was a TSA agent who's judge, jury, and executioner. So this actually happened a little over a year ago. I work for the TSA, and I have for a few years now. It's a good job overall. I'm underpaid, but the benefits are nice, and I do get overtime when I want it. A little over a year ago, during the week leading up to Christmas, we had some really bad weather that delayed all the flights. I volunteered to stay late so my coworkers could go home to their families. Most of the work was done anyways, so I was mostly standing around waiting for the odd latecomer. I was working at the AIT, the space tube thingy, when 3 passengers came up together, a middle-aged man, a middle-aged woman, and a teenage boy. I figure it's a family traveling together for the holidays and go about my work. The mom goes through, all is fine. The dad goes through, all is fine. That's when the kid comes up and I get a good look at him. He's wearing hoodies, sweatpants, short hair, smooth face. I figure he's about 13, maybe 14 years old. I hit the button and then direct him to wait with me for a moment and then gesture to the screen, which then lit up on his chest area. I tell him I have to pat that area down. Hearing me say that, he's a little nervous. I figure because he's so young and this is probably his first time getting a pat down, but he says okay and I start the pat down. I start with the left side of the chest and I feel some moob, which does catch me off guard because this kid didn't look chubby at all. I then move to the right side of the chest and then I catch what's on the hoodie, and it all clicks at once. This hoodie has the name of a local college on it. This is an adult, not a child. And he's not wearing sweatpants. She's wearing sweatpants. She doesn't even know the couple that just came through. I go to look at her face, which is bright red, and my hand is still on her chest. I pull it back like I got bit by a snake. I immediately call my supervisor, who then comes over and asks what's wrong. I explain the situation to her. My supervisor covers her mouth, and at first, I thought she was absolutely mortified, but I realized that she's trying not to laugh. She takes a minute to pull herself together, and she tells me, go take a break, and she finishes screening the passenger herself. Once that was done, I apologize to the passenger, and she tells me it's fine, that it wasn't the first time that she was mistaken for a boy, and she probably should have said something before I started touching her. I leave her alone and go talk to my supervisor to figure out exactly how fired I am. She tells me to calm down and that it's just an honest mistake and that she has my back if the passenger files an official complaint. But that probably won't happen and I shouldn't be worried. That reassured me a little, but I still did that to a woman, so I feel like an absolute monster. I swallow my shame and finish my shift, and then I go find some food because I just finished a 12-hour shift. There's no way I have the energy to cook dinner. I saw my hapless victim sitting at her gate waiting for her flight. I went up to her to apologize again, and that's when I saw the flight had been delayed until early morning. It was about 11 at night at this point. I apologize again, and she says it's fine, and I ask if she's planning to stay the whole night. She says she has to because all the hotels in the area are booked. I tell her that I'm getting some dinner at that cafe right there, and I offer to get her some food as well. After all, I already got to second base, and I think it's only fair I buy her dinner. She agrees, and then she tells me she gets mistaken for a boy a lot, and it's not a big deal. I then make a joke, and she laughed. We end up talking for a few hours before I finally told her I had to get home, and then apologized again for the accidental touching. She said that all is forgiven if I promise to take her on a real date when she gets back. I agreed, and then gave her my phone number, and then went home and immediately started texting her. We kept talking until her flight finally left, and when she got back, I picked her up at the airport. And a few days later, I took her on that date I promised her. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary, and she has long hair now. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our slash entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's another entitled people episode, where OP realizes that he married a psycho Karen and she's draining their bank account. Guys, it's such a wild episode, so go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.